We now welcome in Harrison Arnold, master club fitter, really good golfer, in to give some perspective on Michael Brennan's winning clubs at the Bank of Utah Championship, a name that not a ton of people probably were super aware of heading into this week, but had a ton of success on kind of lower level tours, got a sponsor's invite, and goes out and destroys everybody. So we'll start kind of towards the top. Titleist GT3 driver, Harrison. That's nothing surprising there. I'm sure you've fit a ton of those in the last year and a half or so. But where I wanted to start here is actually his 3-wood, Titleist GT1. I think you would assume a lot of GT2s and GT3s would be the 3-wood of choice from that series. But GT1 here, what do you think Michael has seen with that one to put it in the bag?
Yeah, so I think, like we were talking about, I think the first... he's put this club into the bag this week, right? So he's clearly got to this golf course, played a practice round, seen a situation out there where he's thought change was necessary. So GT1 going to be a much shallower head. This is their most forgiving model. So I think to start off, just definitely gives him a little bit more confidence looking behind the ball. But that thing's going to launch a little bit higher. It's going to spin a little bit more. So there's definitely a situation that he's seen this week where he's thought, maybe I need this club to help gap my bag a little bit better, especially the elevations they're at this week. Ball was going for a long way. I think he had a couple drives that went over 400 yards this week, so definitely getting it out there, right? So I would assume there were some situations, maybe coming into a par 5, that he thought, I'm going to need something that is going to launch a little bit higher and come down a little bit softer to help me score better on these par 5s, which clearly worked. Huh?
Yeah, clearly it worked. So I mean, any decision he made in here clearly worked for him this week. So GT1. It's kind of fascinating to go from GT3 in the driver, the kind of clearly a player's, tour, so to speak, driver head. Go to GT1, which it obviously can act like a tour head for a lot of players, but it's the higher MOI, bigger footprint, much shallower face. Then into the irons, which is where things get even more fun for me. A T150 utility iron, and that is not a typo or a mistake. He played a T150, which is, kind of that player's cavity design from Titleist in their T series, but it becomes a utility iron with the Project X Hazardous Black 105 hybrid shaft in it. So he basically takes a what would be described to me as a player's cavity iron, pretty slim profile, and turns it into a utility iron. Have you seen something like this before, and why do you think Michael opted for it?
Yeah, so I think I haven't seen a lot of people get fit for these in the fitting base. You've got to be a pretty good ball striker to put a utility iron in as a T150, right? Seen it a lot in the bags of at high-level tournaments. I think there's a element of, yes, that thing's going to spin a little bit higher, and it's going to come down a little bit softer. But I think it's that look. I think it's the look of that slimmer profile. If you used to putting a club down and seeing blades, you're not going to want to see all that gear behind the head.
Right, a big chunky club.
No, right. So I think that's one big thing. I think going to that T150 with a graphite hazardous shaft, I think it just gives him the workability. If he wants to hit something a little bit lower and get something to chase, he's got the ability to. But that graphite shaft's going to launch nice and high and give him enough stopping power into those greens.
Yeah, because I think the commonplace utility iron here would be something like a T200 or a T250 or U505, whatever it might be from Titleist. But with that said, he does transition from T150 in that 3-iron to T100 in the 4-5 iron, and then actually 620 CB from 6 through 9 iron. So I would say a pretty unique combo set there. A lot of times it's a muscleback blade to a T100, or maybe it's just T100 to T150.
Yeah.
But this is probably a combo. I don't know if you've seen this before. This is definitely I think a new one for me.
Yeah, I mean, combo sets are extremely popular and getting more popular every year, right? Definitely makes a lot of sense to help gap the bag, give ourselves a little bit more forgiveness in the top end of the bag. But yeah, this is... It's barely even a combo set, right? It's all very bladed. I think if we're looking at Brennan's setup here, though, he's definitely looking for a little bit more precision on that in that bottom half of the bag, the real scoring clubs as well. I think that 4 and 5 irons in there just for that extra added forgiveness, which we're talking T100 and talking forgiveness, usually not in the same sentence, right? But so it's very interesting setup that he went and played this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are, I would say, pretty quote-unquote normal. A couple things to GT3 driver, right? But I think the iron set is certainly an interesting combo there. You don't see a lot of 620 CB to T100. In the wedges, I would say this is where it's more quote unquote normal or a more common setup. We goes Vokey SM10 and it's 46, acting like kind of a pitching wedge almost for him. 50, 54, and then a kind of a custom WedgeWorks, 60-degree or lob wedge. Into the putter now, and I know you had mentioned this before we started recording. This was kind of something interesting. Scotty Cameron Phantom 7.2 Tour prototype. And what makes it unique, especially here, is the neck. It's a welded plumber's neck there. So talk to me about that setup and maybe what he's liking about that and why he has it in the bag.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, firstly, that putter comes stock with a short slant net. So whenever you see something that's welded on the bottom, they've kind of done something very custom to it that's not a usual offering, right? So kind of stands out straight away. I think looking at different neck styles, it's very important to kind of get fit in a putter fitting for the neck style too. We always talk about head shape and how that can affect your aim, but I think neck's just equally as important, right? So there's 3 things we can really control in putting. It's our speed, it's how we read the greens, but the most important thing that we look at in fittings is how do we aim that putter? Because that's the one main thing we can control. So finding the right head shape is half the battle, but also finding the right neck type that he likes is also equally important. Because we're looking at how can I get this thing to perform exactly the same every single time. It's a game of imperfection, right?
Right, exactly. And I think one of the things that I wanted to add here too is I think in my time at Second Swing and what I've learned about putters is so often it's the neck type is associated with your stroke or the stroke type, right? I mean, if you have some, toe hang, maybe you need more of, your putting stroke has more arc to it, right? But this is a little different perspective where the neck type can actually be associated to how you set up the putter and your alignment with it.
Sure.
So do you often make a switch either yourself or with a golfer in a fitting, just the neck type based on how you align it?
Definitely. I think head shape kind of carries most of it. But if we're looking between a few different head shapes, and we found the right head shape, then I think my next step is going, okay, well, let's see what other neck styles is offered in this head shape. Let's see if there's a difference between a short slant neck or a gooseneck or a plumber's neck, whatever that it may offer in that thing, because we might find something that is just a little bit more consistent. A plumber's neck comes up and goes to the left on the right-handed putter. That alone is going to help you to set your hands a little bit more forward when you're setting up to the putt, right? So that alone kind of takes away that first move where you push your hands forward, and when we push our hands forward, face opens ever so slightly. So maybe for him, he doesn't like to have to remember or push his hands forward because of that reason. So the plumber's neck works great for him. Maybe those little short slant necks, he pushes his hand forward, sees there's a little bit of a right aim bias.
Yeah, interesting. That's something, again, I haven't thought of before, but another fascinating look, and that's why you're here, Harrison, to give those different perspectives for us.
That'll be good for something.
so Harrison, thank you for stopping in. That's an in-depth look at the clubs that were won on the PGA Tour this week by Michael Brennan.